All right, folks, welcome back to number 16 on the Sean Fontana podcast. This one is a sweet 16 because we have a special guest again. We have multiple national champion over 400 and 800 metres, multiple British champion as a junior and a senior over 800 metres, a junior representative of Team GB in the junior youth and world championships. We have the Commonwealth Games bronze medalist in 2008 for the Commonwealth Youth Games for Scotland, 2011 European Under-23 bronze medalist, 2012 London Olympian, 2016 Rio Olympian, 2012 European gold medalist, 2014 European silver medalist, 2014 Commonwealth Games silver medalist, professional athlete for Adidas, 800 metre national record holder, Lynsey Sharp. How are you doing, Lynsey?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks. How are you coping with the current situation that we're in just now during lockdown?
I think, the first 2 weeks were hard, the hardest, just getting used to like a new routine and a new normal, but kind of 10 weeks on, sadly, it kind of feels normal.
Yeah.
But there's been enjoyable aspects to it. Like I've never spent this much time at home and stuff, so it's been nice to be at home.
Yeah, and how's your training been? I know that you would be gearing up for the British Championships, the Olympic trials, and now that's been put on hold. Where's your training at, and where's your mindset at with the situation with the postponement of the British Champs and the Olympics?
It has been hard because this time of year is my favourite time of year, and it's the training that I love doing the most. It's like high intensity, long recovery, fast sessions, and it kind of feels like I've done all the training that I don't like, all the long, slow stuff in the winter, and I've not really like got to do the bit that I enjoy, which is like training hard on the track and racing. But I have, in some respects, really enjoyed like stuff I've done. We've not been able to get on the track for most of it, so like we measured out every 200 meters on a bike path, and just like that just was a different challenge. Like running as hard as you can in a straight line, and I think that sometimes when you're off the track, you run harder than you perhaps do on the track because you're like, if in doubt, I'll just go harder. So I'm probably actually really fit. I've also done 5 weeks in an altitude tent, which has like been taking a lot of discipline to stay in it for 5 weeks in lockdown, but hopefully we'll see the benefits of that as well.
Especially in the hot weather as well, because at night time you can't cool down, so that can be quite tough and challenging to stay in the tent while you're really, really hot, especially training hard. You'll get the restless leg syndrome as well. Are you coping all right with that? You staying in the tent and keeping to the plan? Yeah,
like I've not put it's not super high, so, and I've like kept an eye on my stats and stuff. So if I've had a hard session and like my stats drop down the next morning, then I've usually got an easy day anyway. But I've not put the height up at all because my stats have stayed around 92 the whole time. But yeah, I don't love it. But sadly, we saw really good benefits when I did 3 weeks a few months ago. So yeah, I had to go back in it. But Andrew literally pushes me in it at night. He's like, "You're not allowed out."
So you're in it, but Butchie isn't, or are they both?
I know.
Right?
No, just me. Who would have thought?
Brilliant. Good.
I know.
So it's the individual tent instead of the whole shebang over the mattress and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm not that experienced with tents, so this is like the only one that I've got, and it's like the Affinity Altitude one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's only over your head, but it's pretty big. So you've got like honestly, once I'm asleep, I don't even notice that I'm in it. It's actually really good. But yeah, when it's hot, you do notice like the heat in it a little bit.
I bet that's taking a lot of discipline to do that, especially at this time of year where you could be thinking, well, what does a couple of days out the tent mean, because the champs are so far away? But that's really good discipline that you're doing that. And you've got a new addition to the family. How's little Bowie?
Yeah, she's good. We talked for ages about getting a dog, and like we kept saying, it's not a good time because like the Olympics, and we're going to be away loads in the summer. And then when we started to see like the Olympics is probably not going to go ahead, and like it was just before lockdown, and we knew we'd be around all summer, we're like, this is probably the best time to do it because we can train her really well. Like we're not away traveling at all the first few months of her life. And like it's going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, once we're like traveling again. But I don't really do, because I don't go on altitude camps, so I'm not away as often as like Andrew's away all the time. But it'll be quite good company for me when I'm here in Melbourne. We've got like friends that are desperate to look after her, so I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, she looks so cute, like all those Instagram posts that you've been putting up.
She's a little star.
And also, congratulations getting engaged.
Thank you. I know. Who would have thought?
Lucky man.
I know, it's been a bit of a mad 6 months or so, but yeah, it was really fun. Good end to the year.
Excellent. And also, I guess the listeners will be tuning in, and they would probably be thinking, how do you, Lynsey, stay motivated during lockdown? I know you've got your ups and your down days with motivation, but how do you kind of stay that consistent, always getting out there grinding? How do you stay motivated during the lockdown?
There's definitely, like, as I'm sure everyone's found, been like ups and downs, and there's days when like I just can't be bothered, and it's hard when you're like, I don't even know when I'm racing, don't know when this lockdown's ending. But I think I always do manage to get out the door, whether it's just later in the day, like, if I don't feel like it first thing in the morning. But I think everyone will agree that they feel better once they've done it. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes it's just like starting is the hardest part.
Yeah.
And I think even just seeing, like, for example, like with the tent, like I saw that as a challenge to see if I could stay in it for 5 weeks, and I don't want to fail at that. So like if I've got training, like I know, like within reason, like obviously if you're not feeling well or you're injured, like everyone wants to do like what's written down. Mm-hmm. Or even if like you can't do what's written down, like as long as you can finish each day saying like what I did today made me a better athlete. Mm-hmm. I think like when you do your training diary at the end of the week, you can say like I'm proud of that week, and that's what I wanted to make sure I did each week.
Excellent. So I guess there's a couple of really cool key points there. Is one, you have a routine and you stick to it day by day. You've got structure to your day, and that you are also self-reflecting on, when you were saying, even though before you go out running and before you go out training, especially your training sessions to push your body, you're looking at the after effect of, I know I will feel better once I get it done. So they're really key points for a lot of people. Like, we're all human beings at the end of the day. I think a lot of people who are sub-elite or non-elite athletes think that elite athletes don't have, like, they're the Terminator, they don't have feelings, they don't have emotions. And we all go through the same wave of emotions. It's just, how do you stay disciplined and on track to achieving your goals? So
yeah.
And
I put up a post like last week, and I was just like my week generally goes like I hate Sundays in England because everything closes at 4.
Right.
So it's like, and I always have a rest day on Sunday, so it's like the longest day ever. And then I start on Monday and I'm like another week of this. And then Tuesday's like a big session, I'm like, oh, and then by the end of the week, like I'm doing really well. But that's like a constant cycle of how weeks usually go. Right. And like, yeah, it's like not every day I'm like buzzing to go and train. Mm-hmm. But like that's the same, like everyone has other stuff going on, like everyone's tired or not as motivated some days, and that's only human.
Yeah, brilliant. And I hope some of the listeners take note of that, because I guess people have their own, when you put athletes on a pedestal, you kind of think they're the exception to the rule, and they don't feel anything. But
yeah, not at all.
We're human at the end of the day. And I want to go back to where it all began for you, Lynsey. Like, take us back to, I've been studying your career, over the past couple of days. We've been on like sort of Scottish school teams. You've absolutely rocked it into the stratosphere with your athletics with Team GB in Scotland. I've just gone back through your Power of 10 and seeing what age you were when you started, your progression through the junior into the senior ranks. It's quite phenomenal. I don't know, sometimes I feel when I was speaking to Chris and Neil Gourley, when you take a step back and you think about where you've come from as a junior athlete back when you were a kid, under 13s, and now where you are now, like, I think this self-reflection is quite good to say, wow, like, I've actually, as I introduce you and mention your accolades, you must have been thinking, wow, actually it's quite a lot there. So how did it start? Why and how did you get into athletics?
So both my parents were athletes, and my mum was still kind of training and coaching and stuff when me and Carla were young. So I grew up at tracks, like playing in like the puddles and shot put circles, playing in the sand pit, like in our pants at Meadowbank, like just like messing around. And then Carly started going down to Edinburgh AC, but I was too young at the time, so there was like a gymnastics club, which I don't know if you remember, Meadowbank. It had like the gymnastics looked onto the track.
Yeah.
And my mum was like, "Oh, I'm taking Carly down to the track anyway, so why don't you go and do gymnastics? Because you can do that." I must have been like, honestly, like 6 or 7. I was too young to join the club. And I can just remember like being in gymnastics, like absolutely raging that I wasn't allowed to be on the track.
Yeah.
And I can remember feeling so left out because I had like baggy shorts and t-shirt and everyone else had like a leotard on. And I was just like, I do not belong here. And I think I lasted like 2 weeks. And then I'm pretty sure they let me join the club, like they let me join in early because like I just couldn't be stopped from like wanting to do athletics. So I think like under 11's obviously like the youngest age, so yeah. I was still really young. And then yeah, just like my whole childhood was just like Tuesday, Thursdays at Meadowbank. I'm sure you remember like all the league matches at Coatbridge and Grangemouth, and like it's just so funny to like look back and like in some respects, like it's crazy to think that that's me. Mm-hmm. And like now I'm like doing this as a living, and that's like what I always dreamed of doing. But it started out as a hobby, and I'm obviously really lucky to be able to do what was once like a hobby and fun as a child as a job. And like, as you said, yeah, it's mad to look back on that, but I think like all athletes always strive for better and for more. Mm-hmm. So like even when you read that out, I'm like, yeah, but I could have done this, could have done that. I didn't do that then. So like, yeah, you should reflect more on that because we are really hard on ourselves.
Definitely, especially in an individual sport as well, where you're as an elite athlete, you're under the spotlight, you know, quite a lot. And when you're on that track, you've got nowhere to hide as well. And going back to your sister, I read an interview where, you know, you had that sibling rivalry at the start. You know, I can remember you both training together with your mum as your coach at Meadowbank, and that was a sort of, I'm guessing that would have been when you were about under 15, under 17. And, you know, talk us through that. You know, you and your sister, were you better than your sister back at that age group, or was your sister better than you, or what, did you do different events? What was it? How?
There's 3 years between us, and she was always faster than me. Right. So there was never really a time when we were young that like I got better than her, even though I was like younger. But I think there came a point where she wouldn't mind me saying this, like she just didn't have the drive to want to do it. She was good enough definitely to do it, but she didn't have the drive to want to do it like at like a elite level or as a career. Whereas like I did, and that's a huge part of the sport is the mental side of it. Like you can have all the talent in the world, but that doesn't do anything if you don't like mentally want to do it or have like, you know, the dedication or whatever it is want to make the sacrifices to do it.
Yeah, and you spoke about how your mum took you from race to race in Dundee to train as well. What did you do in Dundee? Were you part of Dundee Hawkhill Harriers at the time, or what was your mum taking you to back in the day?
So I've always ran for Edinburgh, but for must have been about 3 years, Eilish McColgan coached me. Right. So we used to go up to Dundee, like we would get in the car straight from school at like 4 o'clock. So then a full day at school, I'd have like mum would go and get us something from like the supermarket that we'd have on the car up. It would take us like almost 2 hours to get there in the traffic. Like we'd do our session at like 6 o'clock, leave like after 8, and then we'd be home by 10. And that was a normal day, and we'd do that like 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And like it was mental, but I did make a lot of progress in those 3 years, and I've got some really good memories of like training with people up there and like training with Eilish, and like Liz is tough, and she taught me a lot about like I had to just toughen up, and it also taught me that like I had to make sacrifices in terms of like school, like social things, but I also had to be really organized with my time. So I had to do my homework like at lunchtime because I didn't have time to do it after school. And that was pretty much how my life was for the last couple of years of school.
Yeah, wow. And I guess that takes me on to, you know, I've got a question here of, you know, you as a junior, you won a lot of national and 3A championships as a junior. And I'm from what you've just said there, I'm kind of guessing this is what the sacrifices and the hard work that you dedicated towards athletics and your sport allowed you to succeed at such a high level as a junior. And did you believe, even as young as an under 15 athlete, that you had the ability to go far in the sport with the success you were having? Or when did that belief kick in that you're like, I think I want to go all the way with this?
Yeah. So I won my first, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I won my first British title, like junior titles, in like 2004.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can remember watching Kelly in Athens. That was 2004, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I can remember that I was at my friend's house and we were getting ready for a school disco. And I can remember my mum was like with my friend's mum, and she was like, "Lynsey, you need to come and watch this. This is like a moment in history." And I was like, "Oh," like, and like went there, and I can remember like watching Kelly win like either one of her medals. And I can remember thinking like, that's incredible that someone from my country can achieve that. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just the most amazing thing. And I think as a 14-year-old, that was exactly what I needed to see. And that year I won I think I won indoor and outdoor British titles. And that was where I met Dave Scott, who's still my agent. Right. And I can remember I didn't speak to him at the time, but my mum spoke to him and he was like, "Oh, like I think she could be really good." Like, I was really impressed by that race. So that's even pretty cool that he was there when I was 14 and he saw that talent and ability in me, and he's still my agent now.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And so I'm guessing, who inspired you as a young athlete and why?
I've got to say Kelly, because that just made such an impression on me. But I think both my parents have been hugely inspiring in my career as well. And I think probably when I was younger, people thought that my mum was pushed me into doing the sport and was made sure that I was always training hard and stuff. But I really didn't train that hard when I was young. Up until I'd say I probably trained harder from 15 onwards. And my mum never forced me to do the sport. It was always as I just told you, from the start I was desperate to do it. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, there's been times when I've fallen out of love with it, and the love for it's always come back, because I think I was just born with a love for the sport, to be honest.
That's amazing. And you, like you said, you're moving through the junior system really, really well. You get your first GB vest in 2007 as a junior, and you're there competing against the best athletes in the world at your age group. Can you still remember in 2007, I'm getting the Great Britain kit, representing Great Britain? How did that feel? Almost you're now becoming a mini professional athlete as a junior athlete. How did that feel?
I still felt really inexperienced at that champs. I can remember Beth Potter was on the team too. And I can remember meeting at the airport, and she was messaged me and was if you bring, we'd never met, and she was if you bring your hair straighteners, I'll bring the hairdryer. Yep. And I don't know why I remember that, but I was just I was buzzing that I was getting to make a new friend. Yeah. But also that I had the comfort of someone else Scottish on the team. But I can remember going and just being so overwhelmed by these people like Asha Phillip and Ashley Nelson and stuff, and they were incredible junior athletes, and I just felt so out of my depth. And people like that went on to medal at the champs, and I got knocked out in the semis, but it was still a decent result. But I can just remember being really overwhelmed, and it took a lot of experience at champs to be able to feel comfortable at that level.
Yeah. And your dad competed at a very high level. He got silver at the Europeans and silver at the Commonwealth Games. Did he help you through the process, moving up into the Team GB? Did he help you, your mindset and, helping you understand that you're on that start line like the rest of them, so you deserve to be there also?
Yeah, definitely. I think my dad's probably my biggest critic, but also has so much valuable experience at that level. And to have someone in your family that's been there and done that, yeah, he's quite straight with his words. If you've done bad, he'll tell you, but if you do good, he's not going to be like, oh my God, that was amazing. Like he's quite hard to like impress. But yeah, both mum and dad have like been hugely important in my development.
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, you know, your dad is a 200-meter runner, getting silver medals at major champs. You know, not a lot of European athletes get medals at the major championships. So for him to do that, he is probably going to be a hard man to impress, because he's going, well, you know, back in the day, you know, I get this and I get that. But,
yeah, it's been there, done that.
yeah, and that's probably another amazing thing is sometimes at the start your parents are your role models, and you're two great role models to aspire to be at such a young age as well, which is amazing. And as we roll into, as we fast forward, we go into 2012, and this is where you're still a junior, you know, you're under 23 athlete, and you know, I don't want to sort of answer the question for you, but how did you feel 2012 went for you? Because I've got down here, it was an amazing. You know, there's a blip in it, but it was an amazing year for you. And just, you know, talk me through how was your training, how was your lifestyle, was just everything going to plan for you in 2012?
So I was actually in my last year at university in 2012. I studied law at Edinburgh University, and to be honest, like I wouldn't say that my main focus was making the Olympic team. Mm-hmm. Like I had a lot on because I was trying to finish my dissertation, I had exams, and I can remember like trying to plan training camps like around when I had like exams and stuff like that, and it wasn't like, it was still an outside chance of making the Olympics, I would say. Like I hadn't broken 2 minutes, like it was a really strong event in the UK, but I guess everything did kind of come together, and like my graduation. My university graduation was the same week as the Olympic trials, so that's obviously one of the most memorable weeks of my life. I graduated on the Thursday and then won the Olympic trials on the Sunday, but again, like that wasn't selection done because I didn't have the A standard. So at the time there was A and B standards, and I'd only done the B standard. So then I went to Europeans to try and like put in a good performance to hopefully get selected for London.
Yeah, and how was, you know, your first senior title, especially in the Olympic year? How was that? How was that feeling?
I'd say I definitely went into it as an underdog.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a strong field. Like even if you look back on it now, like it was one of the strongest fields. And like there's not many races I feel like in the 800 where you've got time to celebrate. But like somehow then I had time to like put my hand up and celebrate, and that was pretty cool. And obviously I just graduated from uni as well, and like that was when the excitement was like, wow, like I could actually make the Olympics.
Yeah, and we move on to between the Olympics and the British Championships, you go to the Europeans and you pick up silver, but you know, it gets rectified in 2013 that you're actually the champion. Asakova, I've said that right, Asakova?
I've got no idea. Let's go with that.
See you later, Asakova. And in 2013, I'm starting to I cringe at the thought of saying upgraded, because you didn't, you did win that race outright. So, you know, talk me through basically what I want to do is try and get your mindset on, you at that moment in time you thought you finished second, right? But you know, mm-hmm. Everything being equal, you thought you finished second, and as an athlete you're then thinking, from there you look up on the first place podium and you're thinking you want to go back to your coach, your family, and you want to talk over how do we get now onto the top spot. How do we, right, so I've got silver, so what do we do now to move into first place? You know, back then that's what you're thinking, and you had quite a tough 2013, you know, with injury and things like that. What was going through your head? You know, obviously I'm guessing you're celebrating silver, the second place, like amazing achievement. What do you still as an athlete go back to the drawing board, and are you thinking, right, how do we move up to get gold next time? What was your thoughts?
To be honest, I think that I was just absolutely buzzing to have got a medal. Like, I felt that in that championships, I probably exceeded expectations. So I was really happy to get a silver medal. But it was, so I was on a training camp in San Diego in 2013. And I remember like my phone ringing, and it was like really early in the morning. I was like, why does people keep phoning me? Because the news had obviously broken in the UK before I'd got the message, and I never got an email or anything. I just found out like through Twitter or whatever that I'd been upgraded. So I found out, and my training was still going all right at that point. But I can remember like mentally after finding that out, I really struggled switching between like I kind of resented the sport a little bit. Because I felt so disappointed. Like, you know, like when I was growing up, I always thought, oh, the sport's in a better place now than it was in the past. Like, people are definitely cleaner now. And I can remember everyone thought, oh, well, Helsinki, that champs was really clean. Like, European athletics were testing everyone. And so I did kind of fall in love with the sport after that. And I was angry. But at the same time, I was like, I was good enough to be the best in Europe. Yeah. When I was still like relatively unexperienced in the sport. But in the back of your head, you're also thinking like, but I'm not really the champion, because that race could have been run. That race could have played out really differently if those Russians hadn't been in it. Right. So it's impossible to feel for that result to feel the same as if I'd won the race on the day. Right. And that sucks because no one can ever go back and replay that. And I can remember like after the race, the two Russians celebrating together. And I can remember them they moved the medal ceremony forward a day. They wanted it done as soon as possible because they want to leave the country. And it was like little things like that at the time, like I was really unexperienced, so I didn't know like what was going on. Right. But the more I thought about it, like I was really pissed off. Yeah. At what had happened. And then obviously I got injured 2013, so I had a lot of time to sit and think about like I can remember having a conversation with my mum, like walking on the beach in Rossi actually, and saying like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like I've put in so much work to not even like be able to get the result on the day that I should have got. But it's hard to say that when things aren't going your way. Yeah. And then of course the next year, after a lot of struggles, like I had a really good year. So that's the problem with athletics and sport in general. It's so full of ups and downs. And you've got to be able to, if you can't take the ups and downs, like you can't do it. And I think the highs feel so good because you've had some low points as well. So it's just about getting through them and seeing highs at the end of it.
No, and I mean, I watched the race back, and I can't believe your kick, like 150 to go. I don't even see you in the screen, and then 120, you're there, and I think you're sitting around 7th place, 100 meters to go. You're sitting 4th at 20 meters to go. you just absolutely motor up that home straight. It's absolutely, it's from what I've seen from time to time, it's like your staple, like how strong you are down that last 100. It's excellent to watch. And then we fast forward to 2014. You at the Emirates Arena, you get represented the gold medal for the European Championships in 2012 from your dad. I know that it might not feel as sweet as the being there 2012, seeing that British flag go up. But how did you feel getting awarded and your dad putting that gold medal around you?
Yeah, I'd been injured for 9 months by the time I got that medal ceremony indoors in was it 2013 or start of 2014? I can't remember.
January 2014.
Yes, I'd been injured all of 2013. And so I was struggling, and that was like really what lifted me. I didn't know anything about that. It was going to be my dad that was presenting the medal, so that was like a huge surprise. And I think like whoever organised it, I think it was British Athletics, like they made it really special. Like no one, I could never have had the medal in Helsinki presented to me by my dad in that way.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the only way that a medal ceremony in Helsinki could have been topped, was in front of a home crowd, my dad presenting it. Yeah, it was just so emotional.
Yeah, that is. I know that there was a special moment taken away from you, but to have that special moment back in 2014, I watched it on YouTube, you receiving the medal and everybody roaring and giving you, a massive cheer and applause, and I was just thinking that is really emotional and sentimental,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm glad justice was in a small served in a small way, and you got to have that special moment, just
Definitely.
at the time. And from there, you're buzzing about getting how you've performed so far in 2012. British champion, ran out your mind at the Europeans, and then we're now heading into London 2012. You're a junior, you're still under 23, and you're now on one of the grandest stages in the world. Tell me how you felt the experience was, how you performed, and what the London Stadium was like at the Olympics.
I think similarly to when I first made a junior team in, like, what was it, 4 years earlier, 5 years earlier, I felt really unexperienced on that team. When you go to, like, we went to the holding camp in Portugal, and there's people like Greg training there, like you just feel like so insignificant. And it was also hard because I'd made the team only on a B standard, and they'd only taken me for the women's 800. Like, it was a lot of pressure. Like, I felt like I had a lot to prove at the Olympics, and like the whole thing was just unbelievable. Like seeing London like that, like, was just like, it didn't feel real. Like, the whole city was like absolutely buzzing, and like the village, like, you just felt so proud to be the country that was putting on like the greatest show on earth. And I can remember like the whole walking out from under the stadium, like to go out for my heats, and I can just remember the whole place was shaking. Yeah, it was mad. Like, I've never experienced anything like it. Like, it was, the whole place was moving. The crowd was so loud. And like, that was like so overwhelming. Like, we've all seen the pictures of KJT when like she was introduced, and like she like welled up. Like, that's exactly what it was like. And I think I just wanted to make it out of the heats, because then I felt like I hadn't done really shit.
Yeah.
But I think my inexperience showed in the semis. Like, it was probably, I finished where I was ranked, but I was just really inexperienced at that level. And people probably criticised them for selecting me and said, like, oh, well, obviously she did nothing, like, she shouldn't have gone in the first place or whatever, like, she only had a B standard. But that experience at London was invaluable for Rio.
Yeah.
And the years in between.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, that was definitely a massive learning curve to go to Rio in 2016. And how, you're under 23 in 2012. If we fast forward to 2017 London World Championships, how do you find the experience? Was the crowd just as crazy, just as loud? Was the stadium still shaking? How did you keep your focus from the 2012 Lynsey Sharp to the 2017 Lynsey Sharp?
Yeah, and they are like two different people. Like, to me, that's not even the same person. Like, in 2012, I was intimidated by it. In 2017, like, I'd done so many Diamond Leagues, like, in like so many big stadiums, that like, I love that.
Yeah.
Like, I struggle when I go to small meets, because I crave that like massive stadium, big crowds. Like, I love it. And I can remember, like, in Rio, like, so just to compare like the atmosphere in Rio versus the atmosphere in like London 2012, like, I can remember standing in the call room going out to Rio, where the crowds just weren't as good, the atmosphere wasn't the same, and I can remember turning to Melissa Bishop and being like, is this it? Like, it was just so underwhelming. Yeah. And in some respects, like, as a British athlete in 2012, we were totally spoiled, because that set the level of how champs should be. But we were fortunate enough in 27 to experience it again.
Yeah.
And it was just as incredible, but I just dealt with it in a positive way.
Yeah. And how did you, block out the noise of the crowd and really zone in and hone in on, executing your race and your race plan?
Yeah. So in 2014, I had, like, I'm sure everyone remembers, I had the words "Get Out Strong, Commit" written on my hand. And the reason that I did that is because my coach, Terence, at the time, said to me after, like, the rounds, he said, like, "You look so nervous. Like, are you even enjoying yourself when you're standing on the start line?" And I was like, yeah, but, like, it's just hard because the crowd is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like, especially in Glasgow, you could hear people, like, cheering your name specifically.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to write something on your hand that you can look at and just say those words over and over and over on the start line, and don't even think about the crowd. Like, just, like, that's all you've got to do is what's written on your hand. And so I've used, not writing on my hand, but I've used things like that, like just taking a deep breath and just, like, taking a moment to think, like, this is what I love. Like, you can't see it negatively.
Yeah. And how did you find your performance in 2017? Did you compete to where you thought you were gonna, you competed to the level that you wanted?
I think I could. I finished 6th in Rio the year before, and I think I was capable of finishing higher than I did in London. I actually had a prolapse disc in my neck the whole week of London World Champs, and, like, I don't know if you've ever had neck or back pain, but it was agony. Like, when you just, like, turn your head and, like, it's the worst pain I've ever had. And, like, it probably wasn't the best idea to run, but when you're at a World Champs, like, I did it in the holding camp in Paris, and there was no way I wasn't going to run. But it was so sore, and it just made me so tense. And I think, like, I don't think I would have medalled, but I reckon I could have finished a couple of places higher. Yeah.
Yeah. And that the writing on your hand, I stole that from you. I like that. That's pretty cool, because when you look at those words, it can help you just gain a bit of perspective again when you get a bit overwhelmed. So that's pretty cool. Mine's was my gran, my dad, and stay in the fight.
All of that. That's cool.
So no, that was, that just, the penny dropped. I was like, I got that from you.
Do you know what? I still, like, people still, like, tag me in things of having stuff written in their hands, which I love. It's cool.
And what's that on your wrist?
Yeah, I've got it tattooed now.
Brilliant.
So literally, when I'm dying in sessions, like, I've got that on my wrist, and then I've got, like, the Olympic rings.
Yeah.
And see, if I just look at them when I'm dying, I'm like, that's what I'm doing it for.
Yeah,
which is cool.
That's amazing. That's so cool. And I know we're speaking about 2017 there, but I don't want to miss 2014, because you spoke about you had a tough 2013 going into 2014, and it was a plantar injury that you had. And then
So it was plantaris.
Plantaris, right?
Which is like a tiny tendon that runs up the side of your Achilles, and not everyone has one. So it's quite a hard injury to diagnose. Right. So for months, I first felt the pain in around April-May time, which is when I was in San Diego training. Yeah. And I didn't get surgery till September, because basically my plantaris tendon, it's tiny. It's like literally like a bit of spaghetti. It's so small. Right. But mine was like inside my Achilles. Right. So it didn't come up on a scan because it just looked like I didn't have one. Wow. So when I had surgery, it was kind of like exploratory surgery, and I was awake during it. They just like did local, and he was just like, "Can you feel that? Can you feel that?" And that's how they worked out kind of what it was. Yeah. But unfortunately, that got infected, which is why I had like ongoing problems the whole of 2014. Yeah,
and you still managed an incredible season.
Yeah, like Stephen Maguire was head of Scottish Athletics back then as well, and he always says to me, he's like, "You always need a crisis." He's like, that's when you perform your best, is when like everything's going against like you. Yeah. And you just want to like prove everyone and yourself wrong. So he like never stresses when I've got something wrong with me, because he's just like, "Oh, you'll be fine."
Yeah, you'll come out the other side and run a Scottish record.
Yeah.
And you're again 2014 British champion. So you're into the 2014 season, you're the British champ, you get to the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. Now, I've got down here, you've got redemption in 2014 from the 2013 season. How did the 2014 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow compare and measure up to the 2012 Olympic Games in London? You know, there's a difference between putting on a Scottish vest and putting on a British vest from the people I've spoken to. Is it the exact same for yourself?
Yeah, we don't get the chance to represent Scotland enough. And to be honest, like, I don't think there's been a better time to be a Scottish or British athlete ever. Like, to have this many champs, either, you know, like in London or in Glasgow, is like, that might never come around again. And like, London was amazing, but yeah, a Scottish crowd. And even to have a track at Hampden is like, I used to go and watch football there, and I never thought that I would get to compete there. And like, it's sad now that the track's gone, but like, I can just remember doing like my lap of honour, and like, people would shout my name, and I'd be like, obviously it was on like a mad one, but I was like, oh my god, it's you. Like, it was people that I knew.
Yeah.
And it was just mad that, like, usually it's just like you share the moment, but it's with people you don't know. But I was picking out people that like I went to school with, or like people that taught me, or neighbours, and like my mum, my sister. Like, it was just the most bizarre thing.
Yeah. And again, that race was a Lynsey Sharp blitzing up the 100-metre straight again. Like, did you believe, after all your injuries and your setbacks, that you were able to come out in 2014 and do what you'd done, you know, getting that silver medal at the commies? I mean, where was your mind at, and did you hit expectations on that day?
So true to form, I actually was ill in Glasgow for Commonwealth. I had norovirus. Like the night before the final, like Stephen Maguire, bless him, the like doctor didn't answer his phone, so I had to phone Stephen, and I was like, Stephen, like, I was sharing a room with Steph Twell, and she was competing as well, so I was like, I need to go out of the room. I was throwing up like everywhere. I was on my hands and knees outside our house in the village, and had to phone Stephen and be like, you need to help me, like, I'm sick. So I was in like the hospital in the village the whole night before my race, till about 6 a.m. I think. And they managed to like stop me throwing up, but they had to be really careful because I was competing. You need a TUE if you get a certain amount of fluid, so they could only give me like a small amount of fluid and anti-sickness drugs, and that was it, and then I had to go back to bed. So I had about 2.5 hours sleep, and I woke up, and not one person mentioned me ever not competing. So Stephen had told all the staff, don't ask Lynsey how she feels.
Right.
And like, don't ask her if she's going to run, because she is.
Right. Wow.
Like, because he knew that I was never ever going to not compete.
Yeah.
And so I just got up as normal and went on with my day.
And I mean, usually at any level, athletes are always looking for perfection, whether it's how their legs feel, how their mind is, how the weather is, the track, whatever it is, we're always looking for the perfect scenario. And you couldn't have been further from perfection. How did you cope with that?
Yeah. In some respects, it totally took the pressure off, because I knew that like my mum was worried about me. My dad actually didn't even come watch because he was so worried. He thought I was going to end up in hospital. And I can remember standing on the start line, and I was like, the worst that's going to happen to me here is that I'm not going to make it round, but at least I can explain what's happened. But the best case scenario is that like I have done this against all odds, and so it literally was like I could just run with no expectation.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I just went out there, and like the buzz of the crowd and like everything, I just totally put it out of my head, and it just shows you like the power of the mind.
Yeah.
Like, physically, I was so drained. Like, you can see like all the pictures from Glasgow 2014 and even Europeans 2014. Like, I'm so thin because I lost like so much weight from being ill. And like, I by the end of the season, I was absolutely drained, but I managed to hold it together for a very short period of time.
Yeah, and during the race, did you start to sense and feel that you were about to get onto the podium? Like, at what point in the race were you thinking, "Oh man, I'm gonna make a medal here. I'm gonna go for this"?
All I can remember is feeling like the crowd were pushing me around the track.
Yeah.
Like that's literally what it felt like. Like the crowd was so powerful that I felt like I had no choice but to like keep pushing, because it was almost like they were telling me like that I could do it.
Yeah.
Like we were so lucky to have that support behind us, and that they were like giving me confidence to like push on.
Yeah.
It was mad.
And standing on the podium at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow for Scotland, I'm guessing that's going to be a moment that is going to be with you for the rest of your life, and something that you're going to tell kids, grandkids. That's what is that one of your most special moments in athletics?
Yeah, I still get asked all the time, like, what's your favourite race? What's your most memorable one? And it's that, like, you cannot beat having a track at Hampden and winning a medal in front of a home crowd.
Yeah, excellent. And then you propel. I know that you're tired, but you get yourself going to finish the season strong at the Europeans. You come back again strong as ever. You get a silver medal at the European Championships. You also run a Scottish record, 1:58.8, and you do it a different way this time than Lynsey usually likes to run. Talk us through what made you want to change your tactics and go all guns blazing from the gun.
Do you know what? I didn't even think about tactics. I was just so confident that I knew I could do it. Mm-hmm. Because I'd ran so well in Glasgow and like I'd done it against all odds, I was just like, well, I can do it. Like I can front run this. Yeah. And I can remember saying to my mum like that I was going to front run it because I felt like I could. She was like, right. But I just that's what felt right. I just like went out and did it. Didn't really like think that much about it. Yeah. I didn't really like go into that champs thinking like, oh, I'm going to try something different. It's just naturally what came to me. And like the pain of getting caught in that last 100 meters was like the worst lactic I've ever had. But I got a Scottish record out of it and I got another European medal. So I don't know, maybe you could say maybe if I'd ran it different I would have won it, but that just what felt right at the time.
Yeah, amazing. And how when you look on to 2014 to when you look back at 2014, do you I'm guessing the feelings may have been different looking towards 2014 to then looking back on 2014. Did you believe you were going to have that season ahead of you? Or when you look back, are you like, wow, I can't believe I've done that in the situation with the plantaris and the antibiotics? Like, you willed yourself to go through that season and perform so well.
Yeah, I mean, to put it into perspective, I was struggling to run the qualifying time for Glasgow. I think it was 2:02 point something, can't remember exactly. I can remember like phoning Stephen Maguire and being like, I've got one more race to do this. And I think it was in Loughbourgh in Belgium. And I went there and thankfully ran the time. But, like at the start of the season, I was struggling to run 2:02, and by the end of it, I ran 1:58.8. And I don't think I could ever have predicted that. But I think winning a medal at Commonwealth was always a dream. Mm-hmm. And then having won that is what gave me the confidence to do well at Europeans 2 weeks later.
Yeah. No, it's honestly like amazing stuff. And what you were saying about you need a crisis to then come back and show your true strength is it seems like it's got this nice storyline to it. And
yeah,
we spoke about the 2012 Olympics. You're feeling that you're a bit out of place, out of sorts, but then we go to the 2016 Rio Olympics, your second time. Like, I mean, not many of us even get to an Olympic Games. Not many of us, are able to compete for Great Britain at the Olympics just once. But for you to be now two-time Olympian, you're now a senior athlete instead of an under-23 athlete. Did you have a different approach and a different focus to this Olympic Games than the 2012?
Yeah, obviously I was a lot more mature as an athlete. I'd moved coaches, and yeah, again, like night and day, that the Lynsey Sharp in 2012 versus the Lynsey Sharp in 2016. Like going into 2016, like, I was a regular in the Diamond League circuit. Like it was one of the strongest events in the world, but I also felt really comfortable at that level. So like similar to what I said to you, like I I loved like the big stadium atmosphere, and like, you know, in that season it was pretty much like the same 8 to 10 people in every race. So by the time I got to Rio, it just felt like any other race.
Yeah.
And again, like, because the crowd wasn't as good as London, and probably a lot of dime leagues, like it took the pressure off a little bit.
Right.
It was just like, it's simple, like just go out and do what you usually do.
And you come out again, you know, 6th place with 1:57.69, another Scottish record, another huge performance. You run out your skin. It seems like you are a championship runner. Like you thrive on, like you're just saying there, the big occasions. And again, in a final, you run 1:57.69. You know, did you believe that you were in that sort of shape? Was training predicting in 2016? You know, you've changed coach. You're maybe a little apprehensive. Is it going to, you know, go to plan? But it seems like it was like a sort of seamless transition. How did you believe you were in that shape?
Yeah, I trained really well. I mean, I had like, don't get me wrong, my training had been perfect. Like I can remember having like shin splints in April. Like I had little injuries through the whole year. But I'd ran well indoors that year, which was kind of unlike me. And then I ran fast at Monaco. I think I ran 1:57 at Monaco, if I'm right. And I just felt like I was really well prepared for Rio. And like, hats off to Terence, who was coaching me at the time. Like, to run a PB in an Olympic final is like pretty much perfect. You can't ask for much more than that. Scottish record in a PB. And obviously, like, the ultimate goal was a medal, but the field in Rio was just like obviously a really strong field, and I felt like I did myself justice there, which I hadn't felt I'd done in London.
Yeah, I can't fault you there. And also, I know that you were saying you were spoiled by the 2012 fans to the 2016. I also felt, you know, at Rio it was quite empty. I wish that they maybe, I don't know, gave out some, like, for the schools, for the kids, maybe like some free tickets for the schools and the teachers to come and watch the event, or, you know, just at least lower the prices down for people maybe to come in. How did you find Rio as a city? Was the stadium near like the sort of poverty areas, or was it actually near quite a nice area? Like, where was the stadium situated in Rio?
Well, it's quite sad because the women's 800 is always on the last couple of days of the programme. And how it works is, like, we go into the holding camp a certain number of days before our event. Sorry, we go into the village a certain number of days before our event. So I went into the village like halfway through the champs, the athletics. And then because I was competing, I didn't really want to do any like touristy stuff. I didn't want to go out the village. So I didn't see any of Rio before I competed. And then obviously I was on the last couple of days. So then I went home.
Oh, right.
So I literally, like, me and Andrew talk about it all the time. We're like, we literally did nothing. Like, I didn't do the Christ Redeemer. Nope, didn't go to the beach. Nothing.
Oh man.
But sadly, like, that's a lot of what our life is like. Like, everyone's like, oh, it must be amazing. Like, you go to all these places every summer. It's like, yeah, I went to Rome and I literally saw the airport, the hotel, which was an hour outside Rome, and the track. That was it.
I know. We don't get to go and sip pina coladas on the beach.
No, never.
And, you know, as we, to run 1:57 for 800 is incredible. You know, what does, I bet there's a lot of listeners on here probably thinking, what does your week to week look like? You know, your Monday through Sunday, to be able to prepare your body to run that fast.
I think, like, the question that everyone asks in athletics, or like runners in general, is like, how many miles do you do a week? And like, that is the most embarrassing question for me, because I literally do, like, we laugh about it, but Andrew's weekend mileage is like my weekly mileage. I'm not even joking. So I do, like, oh my god, it's embarrassing, like maximum 35 miles a week. And that's really low, like, for an 800 meter runner. But I came from a sprint background. Like, obviously I've got my dad's genes. My mum was an 800 meter runner, but I always did like sprint hurdles, long jump, 400s, and then I moved up to 800s. And there's times where I've tried to do like more mileage, done like 9 mile, 10 mile runs in Kenya, and I just got injured. Like my body just can't take heavy mileage. And thankfully, there's always been a debate about what is the 800. Is it a long sprint or is it a middle distance event? And like from my perspective anyway, it's a long sprint. And I think especially over the last few years, the way the event's been going, like you have to be able to go through in like 56 high, 57. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely had to work on my endurance, but we've had to do it in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I do like a lot of intensity. So my week would be like I literally have sessions Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. There's like a lot of like short hill sprints, a lot of drills, a lot of like, I'll do like a lot of 200s off short recovery. I won't ever do a lot like reps longer than a K because I just get like really sloppy with how I run. Right. Just get really bad mechanics. And it's just like, it doesn't really help me at all. I do a lot of my afternoon sessions on the bike. Yeah. So I can't run twice a day. Yeah.
You bulk up so you'll do 35 miles of running and then you'll bulk a bit up with cross training in the back end?
Yeah, so say I'll do like half an hour on the bike most nights. Brilliant. Or on a Wednesday I'll do like an hour total, whether that's like half an hour run, half an hour bike, or like 40 minutes run. It's pretty much supposed to do a 20-minute bike. Yeah.
Brilliant. And what is amazing is I know that you say that you're one of the best British, you're Scottish record holder. You're getting close to Kelly Holmes' British record time of in 800 metres. You remind me of Andrew Asagi, who can only do about 35 miles a week.
Do you know what we used to argue about, like who'd done the least mileage? Yeah, Asagi, what a guy.
Yeah. And again, he ran out his mind at 2012, 35 miles a week. So you're absolutely right. Like if listeners are, they're listening in here, it isn't all about the mileage. That end number isn't what makes you the best athlete. It's what you do within the mileage that makes you the best athlete. Mm-hmm. Do you have days off? Like do you have a day off, or is it every couple of weeks? Or
yeah, I have every Sunday off. And again, we've tried having a rest day every 10 days. Tried like doing like a longer run on a Sunday, but my body just needs that day off, and I think it's because I've done like 4 days of intensity within the week that I just need a day of complete rest, and that works for me. I think like like people talk a lot about like junk miles, and like for example like so like 2018 and 2017 2018 like I did not run as well, especially 2018. I didn't run as well as I should have. And that was because I had so much slow running in my legs. Right. Terence kind of changed my training, had like a different philosophy, a lot more like slow running. And his idea of that was to work on my weaknesses. But the way I would sum up like 2018 is like I worked so hard on my weaknesses that I lost my strengths.
Right. Yeah.
So like you don't need to do loads of miles just because like you think you need to do more miles. Like maybe just focus on what you're good at, like work on your speed if that's what you're good at. Like everyone's different, everyone has their strengths, work towards within your strengths.
Yeah. And as you're talking about 2018 again, you didn't have quite as good a season as in 2018 as you wanted, but then again you come out in 2019 and you get redemption again for a season that maybe you're not as happy with. And something that I want to pull out here is you put this on Instagram, and I feel that this sums up championship mentality 100%. So you talk about racing as a work of art. I've entered the World Championships with a blank canvas, then grabbed a giant crayon and drew some squiggles. I'm still hurting as it's been hard to draw a line under it. I've spent the last few weeks thinking about what went wrong and trying to find an explanation. Finding an excuse would be easy to move on. The truth is, there's no explanation. It's pretty simple. I raced stupid. But then, the year as a whole, I packed a bag for indoors in February, left San Diego for Europe. After a disappointing indoor season, I walked off the track at Dusseldorf, having ran shit again, and decided that I wasn't going to go back. I lived out of a bag that I packed in indoors. I lived in Airbnbs for 3 months. I moved back to Loughbourgh, found a new coach, I'm guessing David Hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Found a new coach, new training partners who have pushed me on. This sport has broken my heart many times and it isn't easy. But this year I've rediscovered my love for it. I've had so much fun along the way and it genuinely brought happiness that I've not felt in years. You know, you've worked your way back from running 202 in indoors to running 158 in front of a British crowd. We've done some crazy sessions, saw a glimpse of how good you can be. Sadly, you didn't get to show it, but you finished within the top 10 in the world. You know, this sums up championship mentality and also a side to Lynsey Sharp that I think a lot of people don't see. This fighter spirit, you know, this is why you are where you are and why you've got the accolades that you've got. You know, talk us through 2019 and talk us through, you know, how you kept focused. I'm definitely know it's because of the love for the sport, the genuine love for the sport, even though it wasn't loving you back.
Mm-hmm.
But to go through all those inconsistencies of moving from San Diego back into Europe, Airbnbs, you base yourself back in Loughbourgh, you find a new coach, and you still make the world champs. Talk us through that year. That's incredible.
Yeah, so at the start of 2019, so like just over a year ago now, I'd been disappointed with how I was running and like I just wasn't happy with the training that Terence was giving me. And it was hard to walk away from that because he'd given me like a lot of success between 2013 and 2018.
Sure.
But I just knew that I needed something different. Like I just wasn't enjoying it as much, and like, there was a lot of politics in my event over the last couple of years, and that hasn't helped kind of my love for it. But yeah, things turned around a bit. I came back from San Diego in March, or back for indoors and didn't go back in March, and Harmer had a huge task in front of him. I was in really bad shape. I was really slow. And our short-term goal was to get me to Doha Diamond League, to run a decent time there, because I needed some sort of result to give me some sort of confidence to carry me through the year. So we put in like a huge block of training. I went to Lisbon April last year and just did like so many sessions, like we call them like Lynsey Sharp sessions.
Right.
So just like fast 5s, fast 6s, 4s, 3s, like fairly long recovery. And by the end of that, I was in pretty good shape. I went to Doha, ran 201, which was a pretty good start for me. Like I take a lot of races to kind of get going. And by the middle of summer, like London Diamond League, I was in like pretty good shape. But I think I went into London Diamond League and was just like, so the Jamaican girl Gul is like a really good person to have in the race because she runs similar to me.
Right.
So I was like, literally just like stick with her. And it was just one of those days where like I just felt so good, like it felt effortless.
Right.
And just to come off that bend and to pull away from people and to win the race is like a feeling that I hadn't felt in a few years.
Yeah.
Like as you said, like that last 100 was my strength, and like there was times over like 2017, 2018, I was like, maybe I've lost it forever. Like maybe I just don't have that last 100 anymore. Right. But it wasn't ever really like there was a physical element to it, but that last 100 comes from mental like confidence as well. And I knew I could do it, and to feel that kind of gave me what I needed to say like, I've still got it, I can still do this, I'm still Lynsey Sharp. And I think like some of the sessions I did leading into Doha World Champs like were just like mind blowing. Like I did a 600 in Dubai maybe like 10 days out, and like the weather was so humid. It was like maybe 8 o'clock at night because it was so hot, and I think like Andrew's here, probably correct me, but I think what did I run, 123 or 124? Yeah, either 123 or 124 for a 6. Did like 600, 200, and I just remember running and just being like, this is so easy. Like it was mad. And that's why Doha was so hard to take, is because I knew I was in shape to win. Like I knew I was in the best shape of my life. But that's what's so hard about sport, is like it doesn't matter. You can put in all the work, you can be in the best shape of your life, and you don't ever get to show it. Like no one saw that. No one really saw that 600. It doesn't matter. didn't mean anything. Like, I didn't win a medal at Worlds. Like, I fucked up. Like, I tactically ran stupid in the heats that I didn't even get the opportunity to show it in the final. And that's a flex for you. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are, you can get caught out in rounds easily.
Yeah. I think those, you're absolutely right, where the, timing and opportunity need to meet each other for your moment in the limelight. But I always remember I'm very caught up in, sometimes being able to get the time out of my body that represented the training. And I remember, and I can't remember, I think it was either like Ross Murray or somebody like that said to me, just because it isn't on paper doesn't mean to say it was not in your physiology. So then you will put it on paper eventually. So you will have that, that 123, 124, 600. You've still clocked that. That's on your system, and you're going to be able to use that and utilise that. And hopefully at the end of 2020, if we have some races coming up, or at the start of 2021 when the season opens back up again. But, that message that you put out on social media is so powerful and shows, like no matter what, shit can be hitting the fan, bombs can be going off, and you still were able to keep your cool in the crazy conditions that you had, moving from San Diego back to the UK, having a new coach and still being able to perform. And again, time and time again, it seems like championship level athletes don't have the best of everything.
Yeah.
Just make the best of the things that are in front of their face at that moment in time and don't throw their toys out the pram.
Yeah, that's a really good point, yeah. Like that.
I guess that leaves us with the last question of, what would be your biggest piece of advice to athletes out there that are under 11, super motivated Lynsey Sharps, under 13s, under 15s, all the way up to senior level? Your best piece of advice that would help those athletes out there become successful in their sport as you have?
I would say, like, don't be scared to be bold and be brave. Like, don't be scared to, if you're not happy with something, make a change. At the end of the day, like, it's your career or it's your hobby. It's your running and no one else's. If you don't think things are going right, change them. Like, I just wish that I'd made a change in 2018 rather than 2019, because if you don't fully believe in something, there's no point in doing it.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to be confident in yourself, really.
Yeah.
And just be brave and be bold.
Yeah, I like that. I love it. And this leads us on to my wee power question time. So I'm going to hit you with some quick questions, and then you're just going to fire the first thing that comes to your head.
Nice.
You ready?
Yeah.
Right. So, favourite food?
Oh, in an ideal world, burger.
Yeah. Favourite running shoes?
Adidas Boston.
Favourite place you've run?
Oh, Lausanne.
Favourite artist to listen to whilst running?
Old school Kanye.
Nice. Favourite movie?
I don't watch films.
No. Favourite book?
Oh my god, I'm so bad at reading as well. The only book that is really memorable is Ronda Rousey.
Right. Yeah.
Really good.
Good.
I'd recommend.
Favourite TV series?
At the moment, probably Killing Eve.
Nice. And favourite origin of coffee?
Both the ones that are my favourites are Brazil, actually.
Nice.
It's about as close as I'll get to the culture of Brazil, I think.
Yeah. And then I'm going to ask you about is favourite athlete. So it can be boxer, can be MMA fighter, can be runner. Favourite athlete of all time?
Wow, that's hard. Oh, I'd say Alison Felix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think like she's just incredible to watch, and like her domination of the event over the last like 10 years plus is incredible.
Yeah, amazing. Great answer. Going back to that coffee though.
Yeah.
I saw that coffee machine that you set your day up with. That is amazing. That looks an amazing piece of machinery. What is that?
So it was a Christmas present, actually. It's like, I don't know, I've actually seen like so many people have got it now. I think it's like just like the in coffee machine. But it's a bit of a labour of love. It's a bit of a mess and it takes a lot of time, and then you get obsessed with making the perfect coffee.
But again, endurance runners and their coffee, we've got to love it. You know?
I know.
But Lynsey, thank you so much for giving me your time this evening, and thank you for sharing your story. I hope, you know, listeners out there can pull, you know, something from that, with the motivation, the focus, the fighter's mentality and the warrior spirit. But I really hope you enjoyed coming on the podcast. And again,
yeah, 100%. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much.
Great questions.
Cheers, and I'll let you go.